This is going to be a serious video because we are talking about the 2022 Hall of Fame voting. Now, of course, if you aren't living under a rock, David Ortiz was voted into the Hall of Fame on his first ballot with 77.9% of the vote. Now, this is shocking because David Ortiz is a suspected PED user after failing a leaked 2003 PED test, but many have come out, including Rob Manfred, and stated that there were many false tests and David Ortiz did not use steroids. But I will get into that later in this video, of course. I'm going to put this video in 3 sections. The first guys that were waived from the Hall of Fame and did not reach the 5% threshold. Hopefully they waive back.
Thanks, James.
Then I will get to the guys that met the 5% threshold but are not the big names people are truly talking about. Then the third and final section will be about the big name guys like David Ortiz, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, A-Rod, and Sammy Sosa. Before we get into things, it would be really appreciated if you could subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button and turning on all notifications when you do subscribe by clicking the bell. And also leave a like and drop a comment on who you think will get into the Hall of Fame in 2023. Let's get into this first section, the guys who were sadly eliminated from the Hall of Fame ballot. So first, here are the names of the people who were under the 5% threshold and were taken out the Hall of Fame ballot. Jake Peavy, Carl Crawford, AJ Pierzynski, Prince Fielder, Jonathan Papelbon, Justin Morneau, Mark Teixeira, Ryan Howard, Tim Lincecum, Tim Hudson, and a shocker, Joe Nathan. I'll just start off with the guys who got no votes at all. Jake Peavy and Carl Crawford. I don't think they ever had a chance for the Hall of Fame, but man, not even one person voted for them? That's tough. Now, I will say Jake Peavy won a Triple Crown and a Cy Young, but was extremely inconsistent, so it makes sense why he did not make the cut. And Carl Crawford was a fun player, but nowhere near Hall of Fame worthy. Same thing can be said about other guys like Prince Fielder, AJ Pierzynski, Ryan Howard, and Justin Morneau. Prince Fielder and Ryan Howard were essentially the same player, had amazing primes but faded out quickly due to major injuries. AJ Pierzynski had 2,000 hits as a catcher, which is cool, but was never that great. And Morneau had some really good years, even taking home an undeserving MVP in 2006. Should've went to my guy Jeter. But again, just wasn't good enough. Tim Lincecum was an absolute madman in his first couple years, winning back-to-back Cy Youngs and even being on the cover of MLB 2K9. But injuries and a short prime didn't give him much of a chance at all. Jonathan Papelbon was a good closer, but you have to be insane if you want to be a reliever and make it to the Hall of Fame. Mark Teixeira was a great player, but did not reach 2,000 hits, which probably killed his chances. Tim Hudson was in his second year on the ballot, had a very long career, but since he was only at 5.2% in 2021, it makes sense why he had no chance to stay on the ballot this year. And the guy I was most shocked about was Joe Nathan. I know he is a reliever, so that hurts his chances a bit, but he played for a long time and was elite for a long time as well. I am shocked he didn't barely even hold on. Next, we got the guys who made it past the 5% mark, but isn't who people really have their eyes on at all. Those guys are Troy Hunter, Mark Burley, Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, who I'm shocked did not get bounced out the first time he was on the ballot, Andy Pettitte, Omar Vizquel, Gary Sheffield, Scott Rowland, Todd Helton, Jeff Kent, Manny Ramirez, and Andrew Jones. Most of these guys, I am fine that they made it past the 5% mark, especially Troy Hunter, who barely squeaked by with 5.3%. But in my opinion, a guy like Jimmy Rollins should not be still on the ballot. I congratulate him for getting a respectable 9.4%, but I just don't believe that he was great. And in the years where he was good and even won an MVP, he was never that amazing. He only had 6 seasons of an OPS plus over 100, and he wasn't even a power hitter, so you would think he would be a guy that hits over 300 a good bit. But no, he never batted over 300 in his career once. I don't even believe he deserved that MVP he received. Now yes, he played great defense, but was he really the best defensive shortstop every year like Omar Vizquel? I would argue not. But hey, he made it, so good for him. I believe most of these guys should have a chance to be elected in the Hall of Fame, even with their off-the-field issues like Omar Vizquel, who likes to touch bat boys by the groin. But I'm glad these guys were able to stay on this extremely competitive ballot. Now let's get to the big boys, the most controversial part of the ballot. The guys that everyone's talking about. David Ortiz, Barry Bonds, Curt Schilling, Alex Rodriguez, Sammy Sosa, and Roger Clemens. Everyone that I just mentioned besides Curt Schilling has at minimum been accused of taking steroids. That's why it surprises me that David Ortiz makes it, but Curt Schilling loses 12.5 percentage points from the last year. Now yes, Curt Schilling stated he wants to be taken off for the final year of the ballot, but they kept him in there regardless. Now of course, the reason Schilling did not make it is because of things he has said after he retired, his support for Donald Trump publicly, and the media overall just not liking him. I believe this is absolutely petty and pathetic by the people who did not vote him in. But then again, they have an excuse since he did not want to be on the ballot this year. I believe if you're going to vote someone in, it should have been him. He was clean and had a first ballot Hall of Fame career in my eyes. Now to the steroid guys. David Ortiz did technically fail a test, but it was leaked and supposedly had false positives. He also never failed a test after that first one, but then again, there are ways to take steroids and not fail tests. But if he went that long without never testing positive again, he probably wasn't taking anything. So I think he deserves to go, and I just feel it's unfair to guys like Bonds, A-Rod, and Clemens who never failed a test from what we know and were some of the greatest ever. Now yes, Bonds did admit to taking steroids, but if we cut out 2001 to 2004, which is clearly when he used steroids, he still had a borderline first ballot Hall of Fame career. And even the 2 full healthy years after 2004, which he played, he was still an absolute monster. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for being the greatest player of all time. Then you go to Clemens for the same thing, but he won a court battle about the steroids because there was no direct evidence he used them, and since he never tested positive, you can make the argument he should be in there with Ortiz because there isn't conclusive evidence. Now of course, no one believes he wasn't using roids, but still, he was an elite talent before them. Then we go to Alex Rodriguez, who also never failed a test and was suspended on anecdotal evidence. And of course, his numbers speak for itself. He's a Hall of Famer. The only other guy that is questionable is Sammy Sosa because before steroids, he was an absolute bum and he tested positive in 03 with Ortiz in the shady testing. So you can make an argument that he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but still, I believe that his prime years were amazing and he is one of the reasons why baseball was saved. I mean, you cannot argue with 600 homers. I think that's Hall of Fame worthy. The fact that he didn't even get 20% of the vote this year is absolutely sad. And one last note, the fact that the people like Bud Selig and others who benefited from ignoring the steroids are allowed in the Hall of Fame is disgraceful, and I feel as if the steroid guys should be allowed in the Hall of Fame, especially if they were elite and they didn't fail tests after 2004, which is when the MLB put up the steroid testing and the wellness policy and all that stuff. Now, what do you think? Do you believe the steroid guys should be in? How do you feel about the guys who did not reach the 5% threshold? And who do you think will be in the Hall of Fame next year? I love you, especially if you made it here. Thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel, and peace.